I'm curious, do you ever find yourself either talking negatively to yourself or always going in the path of what's broken, wrong, or missing with you? Do you find yourself self-sabotaging, whether it's your business, whether it's your relationships, your health, your family? Do you find that a part of that has to do with the conversation that is going on in your brain? If so, today's book club call is one for you. We're going to be reading, or we read, Unf Yourself by Gary John Bishop. It is a really powerful book. Randall, good morning, sir. It is a really powerful book that we read inside of our book club. And I really want to break down in about 30 minutes what the summary of the book is, because a lot of times I find that for me personally, I do have these conversations in my head that send me down the path of sabotaging, of getting in my own way, of getting myself stuck, making things mean things that they don't really mean. And it just gets me to show up in a way that I don't want to show up. So if you're someone who wants to take control of this self-talk, this negative self-talk, and make it actually become your superpower, where you actually lean into not only your greatest potential, but your greatest opportunity to grow, that is what we're doing here today. Julie, what's going on, my friend? Good morning. Good morning. So if you do not know, we actually have a business leadership book club where we actually dive into books just like this. We're actually reading one that's called Worthy right now. It's really, really powerful. And at the end of the book, we do this book club breakdown so that we can all share our biggest takeaways from the book and really condense it into a short period of time for people who don't have the time to read the entire book. That's what we do inside of the book club. You'll get free access into our app, which every single day I will go in there and I will take a picture of what I'm reading and share kind of like what my takeaways are and get everybody else's takeaways. It's a way for us to grow exponentially as a team. I think we have 5,000 people, family-driven entrepreneurs who are in the group right now, who are in the book club, and it just really helps us to grow exponentially because we see things through our lens, but other people see it through a different lens. And so there's some takeaways that you can learn from everybody in the group. So that being said, I want to start in chapter number 1, all right? Now, the way this book is laid out, it is a really powerful book. First off, the wording of it kind of irks some people. And I think he did that on purpose. If you've listened to Gary John Bishop, especially when he's like on audio, like he has that sense of humor. And so he probably want to connect it to his personal sense of humor. But I got to say, like, once I got past the book title and I leaned in, I learned so much about how I was talking to myself and how I was getting myself off track. This was like a pivotal book when it comes to getting me to step into the real version, the best version of me, which was the real version, not the person that I was portraying at the time, both online and as a police sergeant. So now being able to dive in, the first chapter is a little bit about like the setup for the book. And then after that, there's 9 or 7 personal assertions. And basically what we're doing is the goal of this book is to understand a little bit about how your mind works, how your mind will follow through with whatever you're focusing on, actually create the actions. We call it belief is what drives your behavior, right? And how to retrain that. And how we retrain that is with those 7 personal assertions. So as we go, I'd love to hear your guys' takeaway. But chapter number 1 talks about, have you ever felt like a hamster on a wheel, furiously churning your way through life, but somehow going nowhere? Now, one of the quotes that I highlighted, I actually highlighted this when I first read the book like 5 years ago. It says, studies show that we have over 50,000 thoughts per day. Think of all the things that you say to yourself that you'd rather not, or that you try to overcome or defeat. While we have little to say in those automatic and reactionary thoughts, we have a massive say in which of those thoughts we attach significance to. They don't come preloaded. I can think about that all the time. Is like when we were young, we didn't have any of these thoughts. We weren't talking to ourselves like that. Really, we were like, I could be an astronaut. I could be whatever I want, right? But as we get older, this pre-programming starts to happen where it kind of like starts to take over and we think that we don't have control over that. Now, like he says here, you don't necessarily have control in the beginning of the reactionary thoughts, but you do have control over the thoughts that you attach a significance to, where you focus your time and attention on. Are you going to think about those things over and over and over again, which actually, as he shows, it actually gets you to create or manifest those thoughts? Or are you willing to pre-program it and find a different way? He says the difference between success and failure. He says, if human emotions largely result from thinking, then one may appreciably control one's feelings by controlling one's thoughts, or by changing the internal sentences or self-talk with which we largely created the feeling in the first place. So a lot of times, and I work a lot with clients when it comes to not only growing their business, growing their leadership, connecting with their family, and taking control of their health, a lot of times these sentences that are going on in their brain are focused on what's broken, wrong, or missing. And believe it or not, like our brain is programmed to do that because it wants us to stay safe. If there's something that's broken, wrong, or missing, it's going to try and focus its attention on it. You know, it's kind of like the headlines for the news. Like, do you like lean in and have to read it if it's like, oh, hey, this great thing happened today? Or do you feel like you need to read it if you're like, this is happening, if you don't know this, like something bad's going to happen to you? Like, we're going to lean into that second one because our brains are naturally wired of like, I need to know this, it's for protection, right? But what happens is like these thoughts that our brain, that is going through our brain is based off of us staying safe in like a prehistoric day. Nowadays, like what people think of us and all that stuff does not mean that we're not going to survive. Like before, you used to be thrown out of the tribe and you wouldn't be able to like hunt and gather on your own, right? And so it was natural for you to have that ingrained. But nowadays, these kind of thoughts don't serve us. And they get us to like feel negative. We put out negative energy, and we come up with like negative conclusions and like expectations that really get us to spin over and over and over again. And that's why he says this is a hamster wheel, right? He says, he wants to share a simple example. Take a moment to think about the daily chores you dread the most, all because you've built them up in your mind to be something worse than they are. We sometimes avoid simple things like folding laundry and unloading the dishwasher when they actually take little time and effort. With enough of these little persistent items hanging around, it's easy to collapse them in with the bigger, more important things until we find ourselves overwhelmed or exhausted. He says, why do we resist certain things in our lives? We have a personal conversation about those kind of tasks that is firmly rooted in some negative opinion or belief. You'll look in your own life for your stuckness, and then you'll see what I mean. You have a pretty serious self-talk blockage. And that's why we have to get good at being able to take control over the self-talk that we are having. Now, one of the ways he talks about this is he talks about there's a difference between assertive versus narrative language. I want to go over this real quick because if you look at the 7 personal assertions, they are assertive language, all right? He says, how do you create your own reality? Well, by shifting your self-talk from being a streaming narrative where you just talk about yourself, others, and life, a dialogue of opinion and judgment, to being assertive, where you cast all of the default noise aside and assert your powerful right now. So one of the things that I actually was teaching my daughter like 6 or 7 years ago, and she's used it against me quite a few times, is when somebody is trying to do something, or I should do something. When you use those words, it kind of takes the power away from you, right? And one of the things that we came into, I remember this was like during a Christmas thing, and my daughter was like, hey, Daddy, can you tell Santa that I want this for Christmas? And I said, okay, I'll try to tell him that. And she was like, no, Daddy, either do it or don't do it, right? And I was like, oof, touche, right? It's because when we come into this, I'm going to try to do it or I should, we're actually not asserting our power in that moment versus I'm doing this, right? Or I am. And when you use that language, you can just feel the difference when it comes to the energy in your body. And you're going to feel through some of that through these personal assertions, all right? So to finish out chapter 1, he says basically using this book is you can use it individually with like every chapter after this being a personal assertion that you can tell yourself. And the ones that like feel the most true for you, the ones that actually help you the most with your energy, lean into those and keep reprogramming those so that your brain will naturally go through that path after you continue to get those repetitions in and get that habit in, that your brain will start going to the path of positive self-talk instead of the negative self-talk. All right, that was chapter number 1. It's probably the longest one that we're going to take here today. So let's go into the personal assertions. The second, chapter number 2, and it's the first personal assertion. It is, I am willing. He starts it off by saying, stop blaming luck, stop blaming other people, stop pointing to outside influence or circumstances, right? Because you have the life that you're willing to put up with. So one of the things that he talks about here, and if you have not read this book, you definitely need to read like all of his stories. I can't share all the stories here, but he talks about like the fact that we could either be willing to take action or unwilling to accept our current situation. And it's a conversation that you need to have. Like, are you willing to do the things you need to do to lose weight? And one of the things that I take clients through a little bit deeper is like thinking about like, why do you want to lose weight? Like, why is that so important and meaningful to you? Because when you get to the deep root of it, if it's something that like really like in your soul, you're like, this is a must. I must do this. Then you can start reframing it in terms of like what you're willing to do and what you're unwilling to accept. And when you step into that, like, I am willing to do what it takes to make this happen. I am unwilling to experience this feeling again or experience the feeling of me not being able to show up for my family the way that I want to ever again. Like, I don't know if you can hear that, but even in my voice, as I say that out loud, it's just a different feeling that you get. And you're like putting your stake in the ground, like, this is what I am here to do. So if that is a personal assertion that helps you, definitely lean into the I am willing, or the reverse is I am unwilling, all right? And like we said, that's assertive type of language. That one is really powerful for me because a lot of times I have found that I've been unwilling to to allow that situation to control me anymore. I was unwilling to wait for the outside circumstances to change before I can change. I was willing to do whatever I needed to do because I knew that my family was going to benefit from it. And when I step into that power can get me through like almost anything. It's really, really powerful when you can find a personal assertion that connects with you like that. All right, the next one, chapter number 3. This personal assertion is, I am wired to win. He says, what if I told you that even when you think you're losing in life, you're actually winning? That everything happens is a real victory. Now, it's crazy. When he, let me share like one of the mini stories here. He says, imagine this scenario. For what seems like forever in life, you've been searching for love, that one special person to share your life with, but up to this point, it hasn't happened. You've met people, had relationships, but all of them ended somewhere short of forever. You and the one just never materialized. The fairy tale inevitably came to an end, and often a very familiar kind of end. After a while, you start losing hope. You start wondering, will anybody ever love me, etc. And then one day you meet someone. You go on a few dates and find out that you really enjoy each other's companies. Things are coming along really nicely as the days stretch into weeks. Eventually, a day comes that you can't help yourself. You exchange your first "I love yous." Not only are you in love, but you start to wonder: could this be the one? Could this be it? This bliss, excitement, and possibility are invigorating and enlivening. At some point, however, the dark clouds of doubt start to roll in. It starts in small ways that grows first slowly and then all at once until the storm finally breaks loose. No sooner the I love you than you start to fall out of love, way out of love. The smallest things turn into arguments. The chemistry slowly evaporates until your relationship is a desert, barren and dry, and you are left with the soul-destroying basics of just trying to get along. Ugh, not again. He's like, at some point, you both can't see it's working, so you decide to have a breaking point. Maybe it just slowly dies until you eventually decide to pull the plug. Either way, you eventually go and separate go in separate ways. Oh well, you're hurt, you're crushed, but somehow resolute that eventually everything is going to work out for you someday. Except everything did work out, even though it may look and feel like a loss. This was in fact a glorious, resounding win, a victory for the gods. Hooray! He says the truth of it is you are winning at the life that you currently have. He says, what if I don't want this life? Well, fine, but this is the one you're currently at. He said, how can I possibly have failed a relationship? And how could I possibly call this failed relationship a win? He says, well, I'm not one to tell you how better off you'd be without certain people in your life. And I'm not going to assure you that you're a special snowflake who will find the perfect person when you're ready. I'm not going to buy into the self-righteousness bumper stickers and internet memes that tell you how great you are and that everyone else is the problem. Nope. You wanted the failed relationship because you achieved exactly what you set out to accomplish in the first place. From the very first hello, but my partner wasn't stepping up. They ruined it. I get that, but what if you subconsciously picked that person in the first place? The kind of ideal character to recreate the same vignettes of life over and over and over again. What if you were actually driven to prove the notion that no one will ever love you? What if it was planted there as a subconscious reaction to a childhood, bad breakup, or the like? And what if with this pattern buried deep in your subconscious, you actively and deliberately undermine the success of your own relationship? You become sensitive to problems where there are apparently none. You started picking at it, getting annoyed and blowing up at the tiniest things over time to prove to your point that the relationship reached its obvious final and natural conclusions. What if this is what you had become wired to win at? I have to say, guys, that is an example like in a relationship, but I see it happening a lot when it comes to business, when it comes to connection, when it comes to family, when it comes to leadership. Like literally when we focus on we have this deep-rooted belief that either we're not good enough or we can't, we have to work harder, or something is like in there that is actually trapped, and that we go through situations and we bring that which is in us to every situation that we encounter, and we just keep manifesting more and more of that. And I've got to say, being able to be a life and performance coach and guide people through this, when you unlock that, it is a total game changer because you can change the way that you show up and actually win in a way that you want to win, because you can get in there and you can actually find out what's holding you back, right? And so what he talks about here in this chapter is the I am wired to win. Because our brain is literally wired to win, we just have to make sure that we focus in on what we truly want, right? What we truly want to win. And for me, in my coaching business, helping people uncover what is actually like in the root of their subconscious mind allows them to be able to reframe it and me to coach them through them finding what that is and then realizing that they can make that change, right? So being wired to win is something that we are all inherently, we have built inside of us. It's just, are you winning at the life that you want, or are you winning on the opposite side, right? And being real, getting really aware of that and being willing to have that conversation is a game changer for sure. Okay, chapter number 4. It is, I got this. I got this. He says, there comes a time in our lives when we're feeling a little down, a little defeated, when it seems like nothing is going our way. It's not like we've completely given up, although sometimes we have, but at the same time, the struggle is very real. You could be facing a massive problem, or it could be something less serious. The thing is, the negative experiences we have rarely stay contained to that one issue. They spread like a toxic chemical. They seep into all aspects of our life. That is so true. Like when something small happens, people used to say, waking up on the wrong side of the bed, it's so much easier to go on the path of all of the other things that are going wrong, right? Let me go to the next thing. He says, in this life, you'll sometimes have to do things you don't want to do with people you don't like and in places you don't care for. People will leave your life as quickly and as easily as they came into it. You'll lose money, things will break, and your dog will die. But you'll get through all of it, the good and the bad, just like you have in the past. You'll stand there like the champion you are, because they're all just yet another passing scene in this movie that is your life story. In this chapter, what he talks about is like, pretend you're on a train track and you look to the right and you see all of the things you've been able to accomplish in the past, right? All the things, the struggles, the things you've been through that have literally like not only shaped you, but you've gotten through to get to where you are right now. And then he says, like, look to the left of the train track. That is all your future. Those are all the things, the obstacles, the struggles that are going to come up. Realize that your months, years, decades down the road, you're just going to be at a different place of the track, but there's going to be so many things that you've been able to accomplish and get past, because that is literally what you're wired to do. You've got this. You've done it before. You've got to where you are right now. You've struggled. You've overcome those. You've become stronger because of it. Some of you guys have businesses because of the things that you went through and you accomplished it and you were able to get over those things. And now you have businesses that help make a huge impact in the world, right? So what he's really talking about is like, you've done this. You've done hard things. One of the things I talk about with my clients is sometimes, like, while we are climbing a mountain, right? We have like goals that feel like we're climbing a mountain. We don't realize that we can turn around and see how many other mountains we've climbed and use all of the things that we've gained from those mountains to actually make this mountain that we're currently climbing a little bit easier to climb. We know what shoes to wear. We know where to take a break. We know who to hang with. We know which direction and which path to go on and which one not to go on. And we do that because we can take a lot of those things that we've done in the past and really think about, like, we've done this. We've been able to climb other mountains before. And the way that the subconscious mind works is it's going to focus on how steep and big this mountain is. But when you can retrain your brain to start thinking about, yeah, the only reason why this mountain feels hard is because it's the one I'm currently climbing. Like, if you guys ever gone out on a run, right? So like Teresa and I are going out on a lot of runs. And do you know what the hardest run is? It's the one that we're currently doing. No matter what it is, it's like, this is the hardest run ever. And we forgot about like running in 110 degree weather where we did like a 5K and we tried to like stay alive and survive, right? Because right now it's always the hardest run that we're currently going through, right? And it's the same thing here. But knowing that you've got through the last one and you're going to get through this one is a really powerful personal assertion. So that's why he says, I got this, doesn't mean that you have the perfect solution. It just means that you have your hands on the wheel. You have a say in this, just like you've had a say all along. He's like, I mean, come on, you live for this stuff. He said, it's not always pretty, it's not always fun, but you've got this. We're not just saying this to paper over the cracks or to make you feel a little better for a split second. Look at your track record. You literally have got this. You'll make it work. You always have. You had it then, and you got it now. So that is why this personal assertion, I got this, is really powerful. And that's something that a lot of my business entrepreneur clients do really focus on, because when they realize how far they've come, and they're like, oh man, I totally forgot how far I've come and how much experience I've gained and all of these things that I've done that have been uncomfortable and have gotten me to the other side. They realize that they kind of like had forgotten about that stuff, but you get to carry that with you into anything that you tackle next, only if you remind yourself about it. All right, number 5, I embrace the uncertainty. So what he talks about in this one is like, we're addicts. We always want to be certain. We want to be certain about things happening, about what people think about us. Like, that's really what we want. We want to be prepared. He says we want to know what to expect, where to go, what to wear, because we want to be fully prepared. We want to be safe, and far beyond a want, though, it's more like an addiction. We're constantly wanting to think about like all of the different scenarios and know all of the details. And our brain kind of like works like this. It's the reason why like in sitcoms and things like that, where they have like a end of the season finale and they leave out a piece of the information and wait for the next time until like you can come back and rewatch it. The reason why it does that is because the brain doesn't like to have gaps in information. It'll actually fill in the gaps. And a lot of times it fills in the gaps with expectations or, potential things that could happen. And it doesn't tend to do things on the positive. It tends to do things more along the negative, right? So if somebody doesn't say something back to you or doesn't respond back to you, like you're talking to them about a business and you offer them a chance to join your team or to get coaching or whatever, and they don't respond back to you, your brain doesn't go, oh, you know what? This probably was a good fit, but like their dog probably pooped on the floor at the same time their kid was like, throwing up in the bathroom, like all this kind of stuff. You don't go that. We go like, oh my God, I must have said something wrong. I knew this wasn't going to work, or I knew they weren't the right person for this. And that's because our brain wants to fill in those expectations, right? And so when we think about that, we have to really get into this new frame of mind, which is like embracing the uncertainty, okay? Because there's nothing that's certain. Nothing is going to say that we're going to be here tomorrow. Like all of that stuff is like, we hope that that's the case, but in reality, we don't really know. And so when we can lean into and embrace the uncertainty and allow our stop our brains from actually coming to different conclusions and expectations, or at least being aware of our expectations, that's when it's really, really powerful. He says, when you stop searching for certainty, when you quit trying to make sense of everything, a lot of your stress will simply melt away. There really is nothing to figure out. If you took the time to be with what I'm saying, you'd realize that what causes most of your worry is trying to predict the future and then refusing to accept things when they don't or aren't going to go your way. I know a lot of times people, overthinkers like me, we tend to go through all of these different scenarios of like what could or couldn't happen. But think about how much time and energy and brain space that takes. And in reality, we don't even know. We'll never know. And then when it happens and then it doesn't line up with that, it's like, it feels like not only a huge waste of time, but we can kind of get frustrated, right? That's why we have to lean into this personal assertion, which is I embrace the uncertainty. Randall says, I like when he spoke of how you step up, steer your life back in the direction you want to go. Yes, I have this on every page on my daily journal, 100%, taking control of the steering wheel, right? 100%. All right. Chapter number 6. This is personal assertion number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I am not my thoughts. I am what I did. I am what I do. He says, you're not defined by what's inside your head. You are what you do, not your actions. He starts off with change your thoughts and change your mind. This is really the primary focus of us as life and performance coaches, and really as leaders, is being willing to know that thoughts are going to come into your mind, but those thoughts don't define you. It's what you do that defines you. I know for him, talking about you are not your thoughts, we're going to have automatic thoughts that are like pre-programmed that come into our brain. However, if we remind ourselves that I'm not my thoughts, I'm what I do, we can actually reframe those thoughts into like, that's great. Thank you, brain, for trying to keep me safe and trying to minimize me. But in reality, this is what I want to create and this is what I want to do. And when you step into that, really thinking about like what you're willing and unwilling to do, that's always something that's really powerful. Then you can step into taking those actions. And when you take those actions, it makes those thoughts kind of like irrelevant, because you're like, yeah, I get that, but I'm going to do this. And so when we think about this one, I'm not my thoughts, I am what I do. It's really powerful to know that you're going to have those thoughts. It's okay. You don't have to listen to them. You can take a different direction. I think this is one of Julie's favorites, right? Is I'm not my thoughts, I am what I do. All right, number 7 is I am relentless. I love this one. I think this is probably my first one. I'm gonna pull up my favorite quote for this one, but this is being relentless. Let's see. He says, when you're not sure if you're following the right path, when you've been knocked down a few too many times, it's completely fine to get discouraged, even defeated. What's not okay is to stop, because you can always lean on relentlessness. When you have nothing else, you have relentlessness. Rather than worrying about whether you should keep going or turning back, press on relentlessly. Relentless has only one direction, and that's forward. It only has one option, and that's to keep the momentum going. There's no giving up, there's no quitting, and there's no changing of plans. So I love this one because it reminds me that what we have in our power is to keep taking action, is to keep growing. And I don't necessarily mean to keep taking the same action, but maybe taking a different action, maybe thinking about doing it a little bit differently, but just not like being willing to give up. And so when you think about that, or when I think about that, like how I focus on, I am relentless. I relentlessly pursue my goals. How I get there can change, but whether or not I get there does not. And when you can step into that, I don't know if you guys can feel it. I can feel it. Like when I say those things out loud, it just gets me to show up on an entirely different level. All right. Next one is, this is the last personal assertion. I expect nothing and I accept everything. So I expect nothing and I accept everything. He said, it's simple. Your life, you, like everyone else, are weighed down by expectation. He's like, I'm not talking about the usual kind of everyday expectations you're aware of. It's not like we're like literally saying to ourselves, well, I expect this or I expected that in a conscious way. It's something that's happening just below the surface, when you'll only see it if you take time to look closely. When you and I take on a life-changing project, we prepare for it from what we know. That includes items from our past experience, what we read, heard, and imagined. We start to picture it in our minds. We research, we ask other people's opinions, and consume reams of information. We begin to assemble an idea of what this will look like and how we're going to get there. That image in our head becomes the template for which we work and plan. What we don't see is all the things we're also setting up a world of hidden expectations, the cracks and crevices hidden in the foundation of our best solid plans that can kill off a potential idea before it really gets going. He says, in our business example, our budding entrepreneur didn't expect to lose his deal for product, and while losing that deal was bad enough, the interruption to his expectations was actually the biggest blow to his aspirations. One of the things I think about is like, if you ever read the book, The Obstacle is the Way, Teresa and I are doing a video on that very, very soon. It talks about like reframing. The fact that an obstacle is coming up does not mean that you shouldn't have done this or that it was a bad idea or whatever. It's there to teach you something, and it is the way for you to get through to the other side. Because how many people have come across obstacles in their business, with their family, in their life, and because they had that obstacle, they decided to quit, versus tapping into like their relentlessness and just saying like, hey, I'm just going to lean into this because this is the greatest opportunity for me to grow. And when you see those obstacles as opportunities, it's just a real quick transformation in your brain of getting back into, okay, how can I solve this problem? Like, who is it that I can connect with that will help me through this process faster? When I get through this process, how am I going to be able to, how much easier is it going to be for me to be able to help other people get through it too? Or how many more people am I going to be able to impact when I now know the roadmap to get through this because I've been able to slow down and discover it, right? And so when you think about that, when you start to reframe everything as like, I expect nothing and I accept everything just the way that it is, then you start to take control of the things you can control. I remember there's a great quote by Jocko Willink. I think he says, when you control the things you can control, you can even sometimes control the things you thought you couldn't. And this is one of those things. He says, your life, your success, your happiness really are in your own hands. The power to change, the power to let go, be adventurous, and embrace your potential all lie within your reach. Remember, no one can save you. No one can shift you. All of that is your responsibility, and what better time to embrace that change than now? All right, chapter number 9. Where's next? So let me go over these 7 personal assertions again, and we're getting to the end. I am willing. I am wired to win. I got this. I embrace the uncertainty. I am not my thoughts. I am what I do. I am relentless, and I expect nothing, and I accept everything. So which of those personal assertions are you going to commit to reminding yourself of? Which one speaks loudest to you right now so that you can retrain your brain to go down this path rather than the path of self-sabotage? Chapter number 9, where's next? He says, it's this simple. In order to improve your internal world, you have to start by taking action in the external world. You've got to get out of your mind and get into your life. So those are those 7 personal assertions. He says each of them plays into a theme. You may not immediately see it, but it's there. If you want your life to be different, you have to make it happen. All of the thinking or meditating or planning or anti-anxiety medication in the world isn't going to improve your life if you're not willing to go out and take action and make changes. You can't sit around waiting for the right mood to strike or for life to play out the way you want to, nor can you rely on positive thinking alone to transform things for the better. You have to go out and do. So it's all about being able to see where your brain is coming from, being able to realize that it's putting that negative self-talk into your mind to get you to live small, to get you to not make the impact, not be the person that you truly want to be. And by doing that, it's trying to convince you to be safe, to play it safe. But when you understand that and you understand that it does not have that control, you get to decide what you put your time and energy into, and you start taking these personal assertions and you start plugging them into your affirmations or, rereading that chapter of the book, especially during times when you really do need them. You can change that self-talk from that negative self-talk that won't get you to show up the way that you want to into a place where not only you're able to serve other people better, but you're able to serve yourself better. It's one of those things where it's like the most selfless thing is to take control of your thoughts, of your own, the way that you're talking to yourself. Because like I've heard it said so many times, like if you talk to others like you talk to yourself, would you still be your friend? And when we think about it, when we think about like the power that we have over ourselves and how we talk to ourselves and how we show up better for other people when we do, this is like the greatest gift that you get to give someone else, is to learn how to be more compassionate to yourself, learn how to figure out how to be wired. These personal assertions, I'm wired to win. I'm willing. I got this. I embrace the uncertainty. I'm not my thoughts. I am what I do. I am relentless. I expect nothing and accept anything. Because when you lean into those and it helps you to become the person that you truly want to be, realize that there's kids, there's other people that you lead who are listening. And even if you're not saying it out loud, they can see it. They can see your energy. They can see how you're showing up. And like we say, like this gives you the greatest opportunity to show up in times and model that behavior for everyone else. Because whenever we think about leading and influence, a lot of it has to do with, are we willing to show up and model that behavior for them? And by doing that, by taking control of our negative self-talk, we can really help other people so much faster. But also, even though this is something that's really, really hard, there's so many benefits on the other side of being able to do this. Not only to feel better about yourself, but also to help those little kids not also beat themselves up when they get older too. So really powerful book. I know a lot of you guys in the book club had a chance to read it. Definitely pick it up if you haven't read it before and earmark it. I think I have like almost every single one of these pages has like highlighter on it. I think I've read it like 7 different times, but it's an extremely powerful book. For those of you guys who are in the book club, you know that we're reading Worthy by Jamie Kern Lima, another really great, powerful book. It actually talks about the difference between your self-confidence and your self-worth as 2 different things. I didn't even realize that was the case, but the way that she describes it is beautiful. So if you're somebody who's not in the book club and you want to get in, I'll leave you the link inside of the show notes. But if you are, definitely pick up that book. Really, really powerful book. It is a long book, so we'll probably have to do 2 different calls for that. But I do want to end with this, and that is like, when you think about the self-talk, when you think about the power of you being able to control this, what kind of impact is it going to make when you take full control over your negative self-talk? What kind of impact is it going to have on your life? What kind of impact is it going to have on your family? What kind of impact is it going to have on your business? What kind of impact is it going to have on the fire people that you are, the firemen, firewomen that you lead, Randall? Like really thinking about like what kind of effect is this going to have on the people that I love, the people that I care about, the people that I really want to support? Because it is a game changer. And when we remind ourselves of that, it gives us the power to take back control over our thoughts, get back out of our head, and get back into our life. So thank you guys for doing that. Julie says peaceful. I love that. I love that. Love that. Thank you for what you do out there every single day, guys. Thank you for being willing to fight this fight. And if you ever need any help with fighting this fight, definitely reach out. This is something that I can help. I'll leave you another link in the show notes to fill out a short survey if you're somebody who wants some additional help, whether it's inside of our inner circle, which is our YouTube membership here, one-on-ones, we have success pods, we have many different ways that Teresa and I can help, but we always want to make sure that we can help serve you in the best way possible. So we'd want to get on and have a conversation with you to see if this is a good fit. So thank you guys for leaning in. Thank you for what you do out there every single day. And I'll see you guys inside of the app really, really soon. Bye, everybody.